The Front Row Back Row podcast is a show where two grad school buddies discuss physical therapy entrepreneurship. I helped guide a company to an 8-figure exit, and I'm now starting my own mobile company. Brian grew his mobile practice to 4 clinics, and he's now doing $1 million in revenue. Join us as we help you grow your own business. Hello and welcome to the Front Row Back Row podcast. My name is Dr. Owen Campbell. I am the owner of Simplify Motion Physical Therapy, and with me, as always, is Dr. Brian Wolf, the owner of Evolution Physical Therapy in Connecticut and Long Island. And we got a pretty good topic today, Brian. I think that this is something you can shed a lot of light on. We're going to be talking about one-time events, right? So this is your webinars, your workshops. You know, anything that you look on social media, they're all over the place, right? People doing them, everyone from mobile physical therapists like myself, all the way up to multi-practice owner or multi-clinic owner like yourself. And I think that if you want to go from being a mobile therapist to a multi-practice owner, you can boost your physical therapy career with physio growth. And this podcast, by the way, is brought to you by Physio Growth. Dive into our mentorship program and learn how to maximize profits and expand your practice. Get started now at school.com/physiogrowth-mentorship-group.
Nice.
All right.
Landed it. Beautiful.
Yeah. So as longtime listeners know, I usually screw this up, and I'm pretty sure Brian writes up the reads. I'm pretty sure he just paste the same thing every every time, so that I just subconsciously don't screw it up. So I'm getting better.
I just mess up the way that it writes a little bit, so it doesn't flow well enough. Just start. I never even thought about that, but start messing with it on it. It's great.
Oh, do where they mess around the words inside the word, exactly. And see if I get it
Not
right.
Clean.
Yeah. Oh man,
that's awesome.
God, this is the only thing anyone's going to remember about this is how bad I am at reading. All right, that's so one-time events, right? So I am, I'm interested to hear what you have to say, because throughout your growth you've been able to do this a lot, and we've actually gotten some questions in our Q&A group about one-time events. How do I set it up? What do I do? What are some of the things that we need to make sure are kind of happening? Is it worth it? All these questions. So I thought we'd put together a little bit of a podcast on this topic. And then obviously, if anybody wants to know more, they can always join our group. It's $99 a month, and you get a Q&A every week with us. So we actually answer questions about your particular business versus these podcasts, which are typically more general. So so the first thing I want to know, why would anyone do a webinar, or why would anybody do an in-person workshop? What's the benefit of going through all this work?
Well, so that's a good question, but let's back it up real quick. I think one of the reasons again, and not to self-plug here, but the reason this came up was we were talking about in our Q&A group, and we were talking about somebody who's doing a one-time workshop today. And so we'll talk about numbers a little bit as well and how that works. But I think one of the things that, one of the benefits of why would someone come to workshop is a great example as to what you need to tell people about and advertise about why they should come. In some capacity, workshop to me in physical therapy, and if you're listening to this and you're a staff physical therapist and you're on the fence about opening up your own practice, I do not think that every physical therapist needs to open up their own physical therapy practice. I don't. I think that a lot of physical therapists need to think about working for companies if they want to make more money. They want to think about working for companies that essentially will allow them to build almost like a business within a business. And in my mind, what this is, a workshop or webinars are a great way to do that. So almost like a side hustle that helps generate revenue. And to me, I think what's cool about workshops or what's cool about webinars is its only limitation is your creativity. So in theory, a webinar could be, and this is, full transparency, we have done some really cool one-time events. We do not do a lot of it. And actually the way that this came up in my mind was I want to do more public speaking engagements. I took a public speaking course. I wanted to do it. And I was talking with one of the guys that taught the class, and he goes, Brian, you have spaces where you could just do it at your own space. You don't even need to go in like if you were to be a public speaker and you go to a theater, you'd have to rent out the theater and buy the seats and then get it filled. He was like, you don't have to do any of that overhead. He goes, again, the worst case scenario if I did a workshop and no one showed up was that I just showed up and would look like I don't know if it looked like a doofus, but just showed up by myself, right? He's like, you can create chairs and set it up. So there's a lot of cool ways to create value.
He makes a good point. I think that's why it's so popular and PTs are doing it is Anybody can do it, right? If I own a clinic and I have 3 staff therapists and one of them says, "Man, I really want to talk to lacrosse players. I want to get as many
Mm-hmm.
lacrosse players in this clinic as I can because I played and I love it," right? The first thing I'd say to him is, "Okay, I'll throw you a few $100 in advertising, but you have to come up with a workshop."
Yep.
And then, man, if that takes off, like, I'm making money as the owner, right? So that's awesome. I didn't have to do anything, and
Yep.
the employee feels engaged. And then, oh, by the way, for that employee, if he becomes known as the lacrosse guy in the city,
Yeah.
then that is something that can help him build off his own business, right? So there's all these ways that these things can benefit. And the other thing I think that's really important is you can really service a niche with this. Like you said, if you have your own space, you don't have to pay for the space, right? Or
Yeah.
webinar, right? A lot of these places are really low cost to set up a webinar, but you can talk directly to your niche, so you can really focus on that niche advertising if you're like a smaller operation.
Yeah, I think one of the things about, why would someone come to a workshop, going back to that, and like webinars, some very low hanging fruit ones that I've seen done, right?
Mhm.
And again, like, we'll also talk about a little bit of the monetization of how the workshop can go and how you can do it, right? So if you think about the actual workshop itself, say I'm going to do a back pain workshop where I'm going to work on people who have back pain, or like I'm going to do something. I've heard this really easy structure is that you can do a talk basically, and for us we have a huge email list, so we can go to our emails, we do that email marketing. Those are great for this. Paid advertising is great for this in terms of like doing more local targeting. You can do a lot of that stuff where you can talk to athletes, you can talk to people, you just have to think about your community and how to advertise it. That's the key. And we've done podcasts on advertising, so I don't want to hijack this podcast to make it this particular episode about advertising. But I think that's the first thing is you can do like a low back pain workshop. And then one of the things you would structure it is you say, hey, does anybody have back pain? And of course, if people come to a back pain workshop, I'm sure there's one person there who has back pain. And then what you could do is you could talk a little about back pain and what the different issues are and what's going on and say, hey, coming over, I'm going to do some movement stuff. I'm going to show you what we do. And by doing that and just kind of going through that process with those people and like going through how it actually works, what's cool about that in that workshop is all of a sudden you're like, all right, cool. I'm moving this person around. I'm like seeing how their back pain is. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix them right there in front of everybody. And for those, like, I'm a big McKenzie guy, or like SFMA are great at these things, right? Where like
Mhm.
you can do different things. And so again, if you're by the way, if you're a physical therapist thinking about like, well, how am I going to fix them and make them look better in one visit? You probably should join our group for just the mentorship alone on the physical therapy side of it and quality. Because Owen knows what I'm talking about. Like,
Yeah,
make the person feel better in that session, right? You're not
yeah.
massaging them. You're making them move a little bit and make them feel better. You know, and by doing that, if they move better, a lot of people are like, wow, this is awesome. And then, what a workshop truly is in that scenario is just an introduction to what you do as services. That's all it
So
is.
so I guess my question is, if you're doing a workshop, you're trying to get the patients in the community, right? Or the potential patients in the community. But you're not offering like, I'm going to treat all of you. You're just going to stand around and watch me treat each other, right?
Yeah.
You're doing it more of like an informational thing, right? So I think that's an important kind of note, is that when you're advertising, when you're trying to get people to this, you got to give them something, right? Like,
Yeah.
I am this smart at this thing, or we are building a community of people who help each other with CrossFit things, or whatever it is, right? And just kind of making it like an event, right?
Yeah, I think you nailed it, right? Like you got to give them some value, and again, that's a word that gets thrown around a lot nowadays. But you are the person who's like, I'm going to show you and like talk about low back pain and what's causing your back pain and how we're doing it. And you're just going to set up that workshop, right? So
Mhm.
essentially, people will come and see what you're about and how it's going on. And some people will look for answers. Some people are trying to figure out what's going on, right? Some people want that. It depends on how you want to set it up. Like, what's your end goal? And you work
Yeah,
I'm a big believer in what's your end goal, then work backwards, right? So my end
yeah,
goal is I want to get a bunch more patients in my clinic. Awesome. If you're a brick and mortar person, I want to get a bunch of people in my clinic, then the goal would be like, all right, how many people do I need to get in the doors to do that? All right, 30
yeah,
people. Cool. I need to have 30 people in that. All right, I got to get them signed up. Now, what you can do is if you're trying to get 30 people signed up, but you want to just basically get them through the door, you could do you don't need that money, because the reality, if you get 3 or 4 patients out of there, the average patient cost should be, we talk about this LTV, it's probably like $1,000. So all of a sudden you do 3 or 4 patients out of
yeah,
that, you just made $3 or $4,000 on that workshop because
yeah.
you use
So
it as a lead magnet.
That's
right?
where the free webinars come in, or
Yeah.
you're offering a whole bunch of value for free when really, when it comes down to it, you're selling your PT business.
Yeah, exactly. And so the reality of like what's the old adage? Like if something's free, that means you're the product, right? Like when we
Hmm.
use Facebook
Yep.
or when we use Instagram, same kind of thing. Like if a workshop is free for you to attend. Now, I will say I don't love the idea of free for an attendance. I
Mhm.
actually think that it gets people not to show up. I like the idea of using like an Eventbrite and charging people. And
Yeah.
again, you could do 5, 10, 15, 20 bucks, 30,
20
40,
bucks.
50
Yeah.
bucks, depending on what you're doing. Like you could use different stuff. So that could be the end game of what you're trying to do is for me to do workshops. We just like for me the end game is to just do some public speaking to a crowd. So if
Yeah.
that's the case, and I want to do that with the longevity of knowing that I'm getting reps in to eventually be like, hey, I want to see if I can actually like do this in an auditorium.
Yeah.
That's huge, right? So there's a lot of, but by the way, you could do this. We were just talking about this, you and I, on a separate part of this was if you get 30 people in there, I could record myself and do it for social media content,
Yeah.
right? That itself could be great and put it out there. So
Well, so
there's a lot
that's
of cool stuff in the workshop stuff.
that's what I think is pretty cool while we talk about these workshops. And like you said at the beginning, like you can kind of do whatever you want with it,
Yeah.
who's it towards, whatever, is that quote unquote what makes it worth it.
Yeah.
Right. And you just talked about, you can get some sales out of this, right? A small amount, but really you want to decrease that barrier to entry. You want to introduce people to you. You go in there knowing this is going to be 2 hours of my time that is not directly compensated.
Yeah.
But as the business owner, I know that this is going to be something that either A, I'll get it in attention, right?
Yeah.
Which we pay for attention all the time. There's paid ads, right?
Yeah.
Or I get it in getting new leads, right? So somebody comes in and then they say, so that would be more of like a lead magnet type of thing where
Yeah.
it's a little bit of value for a really cheap bargain basement price. And then the hope is they upsell to the actual treatment.
Yeah.
So
One of the
that's what I
best
think is cool.
events. And then there's also the events that you're just doing as like a brand marketing fun thing that you can charge. We
Oh yeah.
did an event where we didn't charge for it, but I think we actually did it for free. But man, we were packed for this bad boy. We had like 30 to 40 people in our space. It was sick. We did beer
Uh,
yoga. It was a
oh,
great
there you
event.
go.
We had this friend of ours, trainer Katie. She's awesome. She came and she came and did it. What was great is like she was doing it. We brought there's a liquor store like 2 stores down from one of our places. We like packed it out. It was
Yeah.
super fun. So you could also just do like fun events. Like our staff came. It was really
Yeah.
fun. It was a good way to like kind of do some fitness stuff. It was just an enjoyable event. So you can do stuff like that. I mean, I think we were talking about this before on that Q&A session. Was as long as you're not losing out on your ass on it, you're
Yeah.
probably. And again, if you're a business owner, you lose $100. It's not that big of a deal, right? You're going to
Yeah.
spend more meal out. If you're somebody who's like, I want to make $1,000, you're going to have to spend some money to put into it, right?
Yeah.
And I think in terms of the actual like system and how
Mhm.
you build that system, that's going to matter as you kind of go through this process. So to me, it's a really fun way to try and engage and how to build more of a quick. And by the way, I think also in terms of one of the things that we had talked about was like how to structure the event, how to do it. I think
Mhm.
the bigger thing is if you just do an event and you pack it out, like you have a lot of people. That's an incredibly successful event. Even if you lost money from like a branding / marketing / getting your name out there, it will work. You will make money on that event by doing that. That being said, you could have 3 or 4 people on there, and if you close it correctly, you could still make a good amount of money because it could be more of an intimate workshop where you're like, hey, we're going to talk about how to like help your back pain and how to fix your back pain. And those people in particular can actually go. If you do it right, you could be like, hey, for those of you that want to schedule now, we are kind of we're not super busy, or we are super busy is the way you close it, and basically like you can go schedule right now if you want a PT appointment to schedule for this week. We take insurance
Yeah.
or we don't take insurance. We don't give them the spiel on that front. And then a lot of times people will I've heard stories of people racing up to front desks to try and schedule. So there's a
Well,
lot of really good stuff like that you can do.
and you look at healthcare in general, but really specifically PT as a product. Like most therapists, once they get someone in the door, most people schedule that second appointment, right?
Yeah.
And if you have insurance and you're marketing to doctors' offices, then it's not hard for those people to get into your door. But maybe a cash office, or even one that is marketing to doctors' offices that wants more community involvement, just the sheer fact that you get them in your doors talking with you, you're probably going to provide them a good amount of value, and that's a huge lead right there in
For
terms of getting you more. So if you want to look at a workshop as like a dollars and cents I spent X on advertising. That means I have to charge XYZ. Some of those work. Like some of those, if you're, it's more like a course, right? If you're teaching somebody how to do whatever, right? If you're going to a physical therapist and you're teaching them how to manipulate the neck or whatever, right? But if you're looking at it from like a generating business standpoint, it's just getting that. You have to look at it as like a megaphone to your community.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I would say to anybody is prepare for something like this, right? I think that's the fear for why people don't do the webinars or don't do the workshops. There's a lot of upfront work you got to do for this, right?
Yeah, and who knows if it's going to work, right?
Yes,
Like you do all
exactly.
that work and then no one shows.
Yeah. But
That's
like
that's a fear I got.
totally. But the reality is like, then what the fuck are we doing out here, guys? Like it's an entrepreneur. We're entrepreneurs, right? Like the whole point is to test, retest, fail, succeed, figure it out. Like right, you're on the roller coaster. It's a jungle, man. You got to like do it. So for me, I think like I could see something with Owen. A great example of what I would say is like golfers with back pain, right? And
Yeah,
so if you think about just that build up to that kind of like presentation, how you would do it, right? And again, like on the first few workshops, if you're cognizant about money, first off, you're just putting in time, like time that you would be, obviously if there's specific time that you're being actively with your family, or like, it's going to be time away from you making money at something else. Like, sure, I can understand why you would, why you would be afraid of sacrificing that time
mhm,
for designing a workshop. But if it's like, watching movies or downtime or some other things like reading or whatever, like that's not that much of a sacrifice. And again, you don't have to develop this workshop tomorrow. You could do it over time. So
yeah,
I think a lot of it could be like again, a 45-minute workshop. Like I remember hearing somebody talk about like a rowing workshop they were doing, and they go, "Oh, usually a rowing shop workshop is about 75 minutes." And I was like, unless you guys are working out with a rower, like that's a long time. Like I could
yeah,
teach you how to row pretty decently in about 10 minutes. So
yeah,
like, you know what I mean? So I think in that scenario, it's like you don't need to have this long workshop. It could be 45 minutes. People usually
yeah.
want less, not more, depending on where you're at,
A
you
hundred
know?
percent. And that I think is a big pitfall of this is that you'll prepare for it and you want to do well, just like, you prepare for a test, right? And I think the first time you do it, you'll probably fill like an hour and a half and people start getting bored.
Yes.
So I think that's an important point to kind of come around to is like, people are there for value, right? They're not there to see how smart you are, right?
Yeah.
And the smartest people can do a lot of value in a very short amount of time. So,
Yeah.
I think that's another key point if you are going to develop one of these is, you know, it's just you got to make sure that it's something that I mean, we have our attention spans are what like minute, right?
Yeah.
So, you got to make sure that you're giving the people what they want.
For sure. And I mean, we were talking about basically the event we were talking about tonight with one of the members in our community was a sound bath meditation event.
Oh,
Really cool event. And her primary goal with that was to get people, again, that's a good niche because it's like a yoga type of like physical
dude, I
therapy
want to I want to
massage.
fly out there and go do it.
I
The
know.
way
Right?
she was
Well,
describing
but do you see that
it.
value that Owen just said? Like all I had to say was the actual thing. And he was like, dude, I would love to go to that. So the reality is like, she's charging $30 to come through the door,
Yeah, it's
right?
like a
She's got the
yoga class.
capacity for
Yeah,
15 people. It's
yeah,
not that much. I think the other part you got to test and retest it. It is Tuesday night as we're filming this, right?
yeah,
So as we're filming this workshop. So like in theory on Tuesday night, okay, are people gonna come? So you got to practice with some time. So that you got to play around with. But
mhm,
again, she has a community that she sent it out to. We actually have
mhm,
a paid advertising kind of blitz going on today. Again, so it's like $100 is the max that would go. It's gonna be less than that. But if she gets a few people to sign up for it, again, her goal, we were talking about it, was if she just breaks even and put this event on, that's awesome. She got
yeah,
notoriety to her place. The
yeah,
big time is if someone signs up for massage or physical therapy, or if they have, some form of gym that they sign up for,
yeah,
that's where the real money's made. And the cool part about that is we talk about the cost of acquiring a customer. The cost of acquiring a customer in this scenario is zip. Because
mm,
if you can break even on a workshop, the only cost of acquiring a customer was your time. And to me,
yeah,
that's a big, big piece of it.
yeah. And I think that's good because she's going to unleash her practice's potential. And wait, did I already read this one? No,
He was so good. He
I
was so
already
close.
screwed it up. Oh,
It was,
all
you
right.
did. It was you had
If
it, and
you
then you
want,
questioned yourself. There you
I
go.
really thought I did. All
It
right,
was like
I'm like, we got to
you
read
know what
one.
you
We
were
got to read
having.
one
You
too.
were just living the goal of like when we do our workshops, like double questioning yourself. That's what you did.
Okay,
That's what you did right there.
all
So
right
so
with the
if you don't want
psychology.
if you don't want to question yourself anymore, and you want to do workshops correctly, Unleash your practice's potential with Physio Growth. We provide the tools and mentorship physical therapists need to excel in their business. Explore more at school.com/physiogrowth-mentorship-group.
You just stole
Boom.
my ad read.
Stole it out from under him.
Oh my god. Ugh. Yeah, I need that public speaking training that you got.
That's
Good
it. That's what I'm
lord.
telling you. It's good stuff. My friend Brandon. If you want to help, you
There we
comment
go.
below. I'll help you. He does webinars. He does online stuff, so he's great too.
Good.
And he
Well,
travels
okay,
around
so
the
we
country.
we talked a lot about the pitfalls, the fears, all the stuff going over it, and how to structure the event. I think is kind of important. I guess it all depends on what you're trying to do, right? If it's more
Yeah,
informational, a lot of talk before, and then, like you said, a demo later. But I really think you gotta zoom out and say like, all right, but like I have 30 butts in the seats, right? And you said, oh,
yeah,
okay, people run up to the front desk. Well, maybe one or two does, right?
yeah.
But what do you do with those 28 other people, right? So I gotta think you're probably getting emails, right? You're probably getting contact information. Those are people who've given you the permission to contact. So then, like, after that, I mean, I know if I know you, I know you probably have like a plan of like texting them
Totally.
like 5 times a day or something. So
This
like
is the
what do
thing.
you
Yeah,
do
so
for
good
the
question.
follow-up, right?
So this is the key when it comes to attacking anything like this, right? So again, same thing with how to prepare everything and like how to contact them, right? So I tell people if you walk in my clinics and you're like, I'm kind of curious about anything, right? I don't care whether it's like insurance-based physical therapy, cash-based PT, gym memberships, sound bath meditations. I don't give a crap what it is. Like you're interested in something, give the person's name, phone number, email every single time. Name, phone number, email, because at least then you have someone to follow up with. And the
Mhm.
reality, the compounding effect of that is if I send out one email right now on any type of thing, whether it's MailChimp, Aweber, Go High Level, you name it, I can add that in. And that's now after 8 7 8 years of doing this, 15,000 people. So the
Yeah.
reality is like, so to your point when you're like, again, when I was just starting out and I mean, oh, I'm going to put Owen on the spot. Less
Mhm.
than a year of doing this on your own. What's your
Mhm.
email list at?
So I started really keeping it up. I haven't looked at the actual number yet, but I want to say I'm somewhere around 50.
Yeah. So I mean,
Um,
you see, we're like
I
so
knew at the beginning because we did that in a lot of the corporate
yeah,
world when I was regional and building that up. The biggest
yeah,
thing there was just like, I don't care what you do, just get their email and there was a big focus on it.
yeah. And so when you think about like the difference of 15,000 emails versus 50, I remember year one having 50 emails. I remember that specifically. But over time, it compounded so freaking quickly. And so
Mhm.
now what happens is it's why it's so good to be doing because now to do a workshop to put 30 bucks in the seats, like I should be able to put 30 bucks in the seats pretty easily
Yeah.
if I just worked on my email list alone. So to your
Well, I
point
mean,
about
yeah,
like,
thirty
yeah,
thirty bucks, that's what, like 2% of your list, right?
exactly.
Like,
Not even. I mean, not even.
yeah,
It's less than. I mean, you're talking about a very very minute amount. It's like in the point zero
yeah,
zeros, right?
yeah,
So to me, my thought process here would be to create a link either on a website or some sort of linking landing page, and you can do that like we use Go High Level. We're big believers in that, right? So like you create a landing page on Go High Level. They got to sign up. You can do it on Eventbrite, by the way. Eventbrite will usually take a chunk of what you're doing. So if you can do it your own on the landing page, like with a CRM you're already doing or using, that works. You could even do it on Aweber or on MailChimp. Those are easy. And then what they can do is they could pay for it, sign up right there. And then boom, you go. Now you have their contact information. But not only do you have their contact information, you have their contact information for someone who raised their hands for your event. Meaning,
yeah,
I'm interested in sound bath meditation. I'm interested in yoga. I'm interested in the gym. I'm interested in strength training. I'm an athlete who's interested in preventing hamstring injuries. I'm an athlete who's interested in like preventing concussion. I'm concussion rehab. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Balance, golf, whatever. Like you have so many different ways that you can go in that direction. So that's why it's good to then classify those people because
yeah,
as you build, you're going to want to make sure that you're working on people who it's like this is what I'm trying to do. So,
yeah.
workshops and putting that type of stuff in there is going to be important for sure.
And that's it. And I think the biggest thing I want to end on is just that term. Fortune is in the follow up, right? You
Yes.
just said I gave you the scenario of I have 30 people in and only two people sign up, right?
Yep.
And then you just basically gave me a way of making it so that workshop could pay dividends in 5 years for me, right?
Yep.
And that's the thing that I think is so cool about these workshops, and why I wanted to do an episode on it. So if you want to step into a successful future with Physio Growth Mentorship, we empower PTs with strategies for financial success and professional growth. Visit us at school.com/physiogrowth-mentorship-group and transform your practice today.
Yeah. There he goes. Bam.
All
Crushed
right.
it. And we'll put that link in the bio.
Yeah, in the link in the bio. My God, you
whatever it
spend
is,
so much time on
bio.
Instagram.
Yeah,
It's in the
exactly.
description. Thank you very
In the
much.
description, there you see how much I do on Instagram. That's perfect.
I was going to say you can see who produces the podcast, right?
exactly.
All
cool.
right, you're the pretty face we put out front.
I love it.
Sounds so good. With that, Brian, we are all good for today, man. Have a great. Well, today's a Tuesday, so have a great Tuesday.
Sounds good, buddy. See ya.
See ya.